So moving into the first game from round 22, it was actually surprisingly a decent game. I was expecting a bit of a Storm blowout, as I'm sure everyone was, but the Raiders fought hard. The Storm won 26-16 up at the Sunshine Coast. I'm actually really enjoying the Sunshine Coast stadium. They seem to get good crowds out. I love the hill, especially for Storm games. They seem to get a lot of people out there. So yeah, I really enjoyed that atmosphere. And the Raiders really took it to them. Were very, very physical. In the end, it ended with Harawira-Naera getting sent off in a pretty disgraceful tackle. Well, you wouldn't even call it a tackle on Jerome Hughes, but which was a big sour note to end on. I have to say, it was a good night of footy. The Storm were challenged, didn't look great themselves. It was a competitive game, and then to end it on that note, that was pretty disappointing. But apart from that, it was a fairly good game. I think Tom Starling is just... Look, I don't know if he can keep coming off the bench because they just look that much better when he's on. Especially right now without Shans. I don't know if he's playing this week. We'll find out, I guess, in 5 minutes. But there's rumours that he might be back. But with the limited creativity in their spine, Tom Starling's definitely needed because when it's just Josh Hodgson, so much comes down to Jackie White and they basically just rely on their forwards winning the game, which doesn't really work against the Storm. But yeah, Tom Starling makes such a big difference. And as soon as he came on in this game, all of a sudden the momentum swung back in the Raiders' favour. And yeah, that was a huge turning point. Hodgson goes to halfback, which he's actually good at. Like, I borderline think he should play halfback for the rest of the year. And Jack Whiten really stood up. I'm not the biggest fan of Jack Whiten, I have to say. I don't think anyone agrees that he's the best player in the comp, but by winning the Dally M, it sort of suggests that. But which I don't think he deserved it. I'm not saying he's not a great player, but I've never really seen him dictate a game, and he really, really tried to do that this on Thursday night, which was good to see. Sort of proved to me the player he can be when he steps up and senses the moment. So he played really well, I thought. And yeah, apart from the Harawira-Naera incident, it was a good game. The Storm didn't actually look great, to be honest. They ended up having to kick 4 penalty goals. So I'm pretty sure it was 3 tries each, actually. And then the 4 penalty goals was the difference. Bailey Simonson scored a hat-trick on his return on the wing. And that'll be interesting to see if he's on the wing again this week, as Rapana wasn't as good as he has been in previous weeks. I think Simonson's actually going to be a really good player, or Simonson, however you want to say it. But yeah, disappointing from Harawira-Naera. I'm not sure how long he's getting, but I think he's getting 3 weeks because he has a clean record. But yeah, that was really shit. A bad way to end it. A horrible tackle, just dangerous. It sucked as well because it was, if you actually go back and watch the set, there was like 2 big hits and you could sort of see the momentum building. You thought maybe they would force an error. It was a bit too late in the game anyway, but then Harawira-Naera just took it one step too far and he will rightly so miss the rest of the season. And then on Friday night, we had the Dragons versus Penrith. It was actually a decent game once again. I was expecting another blowout, but early on, the Dragons looked back. It very much so looked like the Dragons of the first 2 months of the competition. They looked fast, they looked physical in the middle, which is what they were doing in those first 8 rounds. But then they just died, really. They looked really unfit. Like around the 50th minute, it was it was just ridiculous how unfit they looked. Gordy actually suggested that maybe in the hotel they'd been getting away with ordering a few too many room service burgers and stuff like that, and it actually kind of looked like it. It's rare you see it, and it's not like it was ridiculously hot or anything, which sometimes happens, but especially in Queensland. But yeah, they looked unfit. They just couldn't go with Panthers for the full 80. I think maybe they went potentially too hard out early, but they were able to withstand that sort of physicality for long periods of time at the start of the season. So I don't know, maybe they had a really hectic preseason and then their fitness has just waned as the season's gone on. But that was really disappointing because it looked like at one stage they were actually going to take it to Penrith all 80. But yeah, the Panthers looked much improved with Nathan Cleary back. They still didn't look as good as they have in previous rounds, but there's 3 rounds left, and that's exactly what they need right now. They'd probably like a few more rounds. But there are other teams priming perfectly for finals. The Panthers are maybe a couple steps behind them, but we know how good their best is, and we know they're not full strength right now. So you definitely can't write them out of it. And it looks like there's a clear top four. With Penrith, Manly, Rabbitohs, and Melbourne all looking very, very strong. The Roosters and the Eels, well, the Eels look a long way off. The Roosters, not as good, but they look like they're going to be competitive. So yeah, that was good to see for the Panthers fans. I brought back Cleary, got him in fantasy actually for the first time all year. Finally, brought in the must-have, but yeah, that was a side note. And then finally, I wanted to mention Talatau Armone. No, I don't think he's related to Tom Amone of Tigers fame, but he came off the bench for the Dragons. He's been playing in the bench utility role recently, and he actually killed it. He scored a try, might have set up another one. Yeah, he was just stepping blokes left, right, and centre. I know it was late in the game, so it's a bit easy to do that, but I just thought that was good to see, and hopefully he maybe gets a starting chance this week, because apart from that, they didn't look very creative at all. Their final 20 is just so bad, the Dragons, as it has been all year. As soon as they get the ball there, just especially against a good defence like Penrith, you just sort of wonder where their points are going to come from. They often just end up kicking to Lomax and hoping for the best. But that brought us into the Friday night game, which was another great encounter. This is starting to become a bit of a rivalry between the Broncos and the Roosters. The Broncos ambushed them earlier on in the season and produced one of the upsets of the year. Here they almost did it once again. The Broncos put in an absolutely terrific effort. I can't take anything away from them, even though they didn't get the Chockies, losing by 1 point, 20-21. It was disappointing there weren't many fans there, but I'm not sure if there's COVID restrictions or whatever. And also they have seen their team pretty much every week, so the crowds have dropped, as you would expect. But yeah, great effort from the Broncos. Obviously, a lot of controversy in the way this game ended. Radley's charge down on Albert Kelly's attempted equaliser, drop goal, ended in a penalty. And yeah, it almost, like, that was actually gnarly. Like, Albert Kelly's leg almost broke. Sorry, it wasn't an equaliser. It was a go ahead. No. The field goal was a equaliser, and then the penalty goal was a go ahead. I think it was 20-19 when they kicked the penalty goal. That was good that Albert Kelly avoided injury, because it looked really, really nasty. And I definitely think it's a penalty. I know it wasn't ill intentioned, but you've got to have that rule. Otherwise, there would just be, I know there's not many field goals that happen, but yeah, it's just really, really dangerous. And then that ended in the culminating action, really, of the game, which was a high tackle on Satili Tupanua. In the heat of the moment, I was pissed off about it because I was going for the Broncos heavily, but I had a chance to calm down. I watched both press conference, which is actually, I did watch all the press conferences on the weekend, and that was actually a good addition to my viewing, but highly recommend it. It was high, though. He hit him in the head. I think Tupanua he didn't duck, but he sort of moved his head down, but we see that happen throughout the game. People's head levels change and the penalty still is given. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it wasn't much contact at all, but he hit him in the face, and yeah, that's a penalty. So I guess it was a deserved call. Adam Kieran was very cool under pressure. It wasn't the easiest kick, but he's an absolute sharpshooter. And yeah, he was really good. Sam Walker nailed his field goal. He looks like he could be a very, very reliable field goal kicker for years to come. But got to shout out James Tedesco on the Roosters side and Payne Haas on the Broncos side. The difference between when Payne Haas was on and off was just immense. He was so good at the start, and then when he came back on, the Broncos sort of came back into the game. And then James Tedesco, not even kidding, in the first 20 minutes, I was legit talking to my dad, and I was like, he's sort of fallen down the pecking order a bit. I was like, the Turbo's definitely better than him. There's no argument. And Dad even went as far as saying Pappenhausen in full flight's better than Teddy, which I don't agree with. But we both had the same, sort of hypothesis that he wasn't as strong as he once was or dominant, and then he's just come out and probably put on the best performance of the year from him personally, and he was just looking like classic Tedesco all over the park. He scored a try, probably should have had another, not a try, but he made a break, and I think it was David Mead sort of grabbed him a second attempt, raked the ball out, should have been sin bin, and it probably would have been game over. But yeah, Teddy was absolutely dominant. Payne Haas was incredible. So just shout out to those two for being such strong players for their teams. That led us into the Saturday early kickoff, Rabbitohs versus the Titans, and this was a blowout. I was actually really excited for this one after what they produced in the first match of the series for this season. It was like a huge comeback attempt. I think it was 36-34 one way or the other, and yeah, the Titans just didn't bring it. The Rabbitohs look way too good right now for the teams outside the top four, and yeah, it was a huge win for the Rabbitohs. They're really, really starting to look dangerous. I have to say, I still think Manly and Melbourne look better, and I think people are maybe hyping them up a little bit too much. I'm not getting sucked in this year. I think I might have got sucked in a little bit last year and the year before, but they're definitely going to be there or thereabouts, and they're going to be a dangerous team for those top contenders to play. It's just incredible how Wayne Bennett primes them for finals perfectly every single year. Yeah, so fair play to Wayno. Really disappointing, though, for the Titans. The Rabbitohs actually went 33 minutes without scoring in the second half, and they still lost by 30 points. So, yeah, that's disappointing from the Titans. Rabbitohs are not a team known for their defence, and a Titans team who's got quite a few weapons on that field, only scoring 6 points. That's pretty disappointing. I was talking to my dad. I don't know if he's playing injured, but I think AJ Brimson really needs to lift his game. If the Titans are going to go to that next level, their halves aren't great, and it's going to be interesting to see if Jamal Fogarty comes back in for Sexton this week. But Taylor and Fogarty, Sexton, whoever the combo is, they're good players, but they're not going to dominate a game like a Cleary and Luai or a Munster and Hughes, or a Walker and Reynolds, but that's why AJ Brimson really needs to step up. He's their player with X Factor. I know they've got Fafita, Brian Kelly, other game breakers, Tyrone Peachy, but Brimson's the one who gets the most touches on the ball as a fullback, and I haven't seen him really tear up many games this year. So that's something, if they're going to go on a bit of a run or be dangerous in finals, he's really got to heat up again. But yeah, shout out to Braden Burns, scored 2 tries in a rare outing. It's been hard to crack into this back line for him all year, and he's off contract, so he's going to be a very, very interesting player to watch. Whether he moves elsewhere, I would definitely be having a crack at him. I think in all his injury history is not great, but every time he's had a crack in the first team, I think he's been a very, very viable backup, and I think he'd be a very, very good option for a team down the bottom of the ladder. So I would like to see the Tigers go sign him, actually, but that moved us into the Tigers game indeed. And look, as most Tigers games have been recently, really wasn't a great game. We sort of talked about it in my house, joked about it a little bit, that this was the game where everyone in the nation's going to go get their dinner and their takeaway ordered in lockdown. They sit down for the Rabbitohs Titans and then gear up for the Seagulls Eels. But it was actually the closer of the three. But yeah, it just wasn't a great game. The Cowboys played really bad in the first half, and their attacking flow looks just really out of sync at the moment. And yeah, the Tigers don't look great at all. I know we're still a mathematical chance of finals, but I know this sounds absolutely outrageous. Well, I probably won't say it, but everyone sort of wants not maybe want the Tigers to make finals, but everyone's sort of talking about the chances of the Tigers making finals. But if I was a neutral, I would not want the Tigers to make finals because they're just not a good team to watch. I'd much rather the Knights or Titans in there who have X Factor. They might not be the most clean teams to watch at times, but yeah, so Tigers got the win. That's all they have to do at this stage of their development, just get wins over those teams they should, and they ticked that box and moved on. The big news for the Tigers coming out of this week, though, is that Moses Mbai has been released from his contract next year, and he's gone and signed with the Dragons, which has been talked about for a while. Very, very happy with this one. I think Mbai was just he seems like a great guy, and he's a very, very good footballer, but at this time in our development as a team, if you are above 25 or so, well, I don't want to be ageist, but if you don't have much improvement or you're not giving us an 8 out of 10 or above every week, which Mbai isn't in either of those categories, I don't think you really have a place in the Tigers right now. We need to be focusing on youth development, and Mbai just doesn't really tick that box. We've seen it at times this year. He's just been relegated to the bench when we are full strength and humming, and he's been serviceable He's given us a backup hooking role. He's played fullback, he's played six, he's played centre, and he's been our captain. So shouts out for him in those aspects. But yeah, I'll be honest, I don't want to be critical, but I just don't get the Dragons signing policy. Like I heard today that they're signing him because he can play all sorts of positions, and that's part of their long-term strategy. But I'm not sure why Mbai would be part of your long-term strategy when he's an older player and their general squad is pretty old right now anyway. So yeah, the Dragons just sign strange players. They continue to amaze me with some of their signing patterns, but anyways, we'll see how they go. Hopefully he kills it there. I'm not sure what his role's going to be. I'm sure, like, if I had to put my money on something, I would say he's going to be a 14 off the bench who can, play 20 minutes at hooker, or fill in for a half or a 5'8" or a centre or a fullback if they get concussed or injured. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to follow. That moved us into the primetime game for this round. Everyone was talking about it. I was super pumped for it. Was ready for Tommy to cut loose all over these Eels. And that's exactly what happened. Absolute clinic from Manly. The first 20, 25 minutes were just free. Like, they were just playing so well. The Eels were just hanging in there the whole time, really. And yeah, the Eels were absolutely shambolic. Their edge defense was just disgraceful. Don't want to pick anyone out because no one really played well from Parramatta, but Wonga Blake, he sort of always has, but as soon as the ball comes to his edge, he just sends it out to that 5'8". And if you have someone who's ready for it and just quick hands, you can pretty much get around that right edge defense all day. And that's what happened. Ruben Garrick scored tries, Saab scored tries, Turbo scored tries. Everyone scored tries pretty much, 56-10. And yeah, it's a pretty disgraceful loss for a team who's supposed to be priming for finals. And yeah, there's just a lot of hysteria around the Parramatta Eels right now. I'm not sure where they go from here. I'm very interested to hear anyone's opinion if they want to let me know in the comments or in my Instagram DMs. But yeah, it's just an awful situation, really. They're playing squads sort of in their prime. I was listening to a radio station. They were saying they don't have any top line talent, which is partly true. They don't have any absolute guns. And yeah, they've got maybe a coach who doesn't seem like he's at the top of his powers. And right now, it's just a perfect recipe for disaster. But I'm not sure what they're going to do from here. They've still got, the framework to be a great team, but there's something that's got to be twisted the other way or shifted for next year because if they keep playing like this, they're never going to win a premiership with this squad, which is what it was built for. The creativity is just rubbish. Moses and Gutho are both, I was looking at the try assist averages before, and Moses and Gutho are both outside that top 15. And Dill Brown only has 2 try assists for the whole year. I know he's only 21, so we can't expect too much from him, but 2 try assists, like that's not much. There's people coming away with 3 and 4 try assists a game at times. So, yeah, that's not good enough from their creative forces. Their middle's still doing an okay job, but their reliance on them has been exposed pretty much. If you take it to them up the middle, don't let them offload all of a sudden. They're just not a very, very good team. And, yeah, I don't really have the answers for Parramatta at the moment. Manly are just ridiculous, though. It was just an awful matchup for the Eels at this time of the year, being so out of form to come up against one of the deadliest attacking teams we've seen in ages. So, yeah, it was just an awful night for Eels, perfect night for Manly, and to make things even worse, Madison then got sent off in a pretty disgusting hit, similar to the Harawira-Naira one. I think this one was arguably even worse, but yeah, it was just poor Brad Parker seems to get knocked out every second week. But yeah, Madison will see a long time on the sidelines. They're saying 3 weeks. I have to say I haven't really been looking at the judiciary reports, so I'll maybe check that and we'll see when we do the teams in a little bit. But yeah, it will be at least 3 weeks, given Harawira-Naira's one, and then his prior loading will probably depend if he misses any of the final series. So that moved us into Sunday, a doubleheader at the Redcliffe Dolphins Stadium, which was awesome viewing. I have to say the picturesque, that weird tunnel thing, and then the Leagues Club behind the goals. It was just a good day of footy, it seemed, in, well, I guess it's sort of northeastern Brisbane, but the Warriors put away the Bulldogs in a 24-10 victory, And the biggest storyline coming out of this one was probably the blow up about supposed refereeing inconsistency. Some of the coaches had a lot to say about it on the weekend, mainly Trent Barrett blowing up about that disallowed try. I think it was Sione Katoa, their backup hooker. I get a little bit confused with the names. There's about 4 Katoas running around, but I'm pretty sure it's Sione Katoa. It could be Tui Katoa, but I think he's like an outside back. But yeah, Sione Katoa, I think it was Edward Cossey from the Warriors, had the ball 10 out. Sione Katoa went to put a big shot on him. Cossey dropped the ball, and as he was dropping it, got hit. To me, it looked like in the face. It wasn't like face. It was more like chin, neck, but that's still a penalty. And I think it was a high shot, and then the Bulldogs picked up the ball, flicked it wide and scored, and that got disallowed. Barrett claimed that if they scored that, they were right in the hunt, which I disagree with. And then Sione Katoa went on and gave away about 3 penalties in the next 5 minutes. So, yeah, I think Trent Barrett just needs, like, I'm sure it's a very frustrating job right now, Bulldogs, and I know they're going to be potentially a good team next year. But, I think blaming the referees is probably not the right way to go about it right now. Because your team's probably not at the point where, like, unfortunately, everyone's comeback's just going to be like, well, you're shit, and you still would have lost anyway. So, I think that was pretty shit house from Barrett. I think he should have just copped it on the chin. Graham honestly sort of came out and said that he didn't really hide it. It wasn't subtle about it. He just didn't say the coach's name, but he said there's a few coaches coming out and blaming the refs for their losses when their team's just generally not good. So I think that was a clear FU to Trent Barrett, but that was the big story coming out of that. Good win from the Warriors. And then finally the Sharks versus the Knights to bring it home. It was a pretty average game, I have to say. The wind had sort of calmed down. The wind was pretty hectic in the Warriors-Bulldogs game, but by this game it had calmed down. I was excited for a big game in terms of the top 8, but yeah, it didn't really deliver. A lot of drop ball, just not much flowing attack or anything. Ponga and Pearce both were sort of hurt at stages. Got a knock, I guess, was what I was looking for there. I think both shoulder injuries, actually, so I'll be interested to see if any of them are outs for this week. But sadly, the big news story, apart from the Knights winning, was for Fifita. I think he bruised his larynx or something, which is like at the back of your throat, and he's been put into an induced coma. So, hopefully everything's okay with Andrew Fifita. Thoughts are with him and his family. That really rocked me, actually, hearing that yesterday or Sunday night, I think it was. Just there's so much negative stuff going around in the world right now. That was not really an ideal thing to hear, but hopefully he has a fast and speedy recovery and everything goes all right. And then the other news involving the Knights was that Connor Watson has basically all but confirmed he's returning to the Roosters next year, which I think is a pretty interesting signing. I know they've had a lot of injuries in the spine this year, so they're probably looking for some coverage. He can play hooker, lock, and in the halves, but yeah, I don't know if he's actually that good of a player. I think Connor Watson's a little bit overrated in that his utility is sort of a factor that hides his actual ability in each of those positions. But anyway, that's just something I thought I'd mention.
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.